This is just like I like it. The lights are so bright I can't see any of you. So, sorry, the microphone wasn't on. I said, this is just like I like it. It's so bright I can't see any of you. What Russ didn't tell you is that I'm not a preacher. Do I need to do something different? I hear a feedback or whatever. Maybe they'll adjust to my voice. My voice is so loud, probably I don't need the microphone. I'm not a preacher by trade. I've been a COO of Bunomatic Corporation, the coffee dispense company for the last 12 years. And I wrote a book, and it got a little more attention than I planned on. And so that's why I'm here, actually. So you'll hear more about that in a little bit. I'm used to speaking to executives, college students, maybe civic groups. But in more recent months and weeks, I've been doing a few churches, and I've got to say, you are a lot better than executives. You don't have to wear the ties and a little more relaxed, so I appreciate that. Russ and I, we tease each other, and maybe sometimes a little too much, but since he's not here, he's stepped out for a second, I'm going to tell something on him. I don't know what I'll do the second service, but during the last month when he texted me, hey, could you preach for me one Sunday? I said, sure, just pick a day. I'll take any of them. And he said, do you have books? I said, I do. Do I need to bring some? And he said, yes. And I said, well, how many should I bring? And he says, well, how good a speaker are you? I said, I'll bring 2. So I don't know. I didn't really know how to take that. But we have a few books. If you would like one, will be set up here between services over in the corner outside this room. I don't know what you call the guest services, I think. But I got to tell you one thing about him real quick. Have you ever heard, has he ever told you a story about Super Christian? Oh, this is going to be good. Okay. So when he and I went to church together about 20 years ago, actually, whenever the last time we were together, he was the youth minister at Southwest, and every year at VBS, we had a great VBS. There was a lot of plays and puppet shows and everything, but Russ played a character called Super Christian. I mean, he wore the tights, the cape. You've got to get him to do that one Sunday. And don't tell him you heard it from me. But he played that part. He had a big wig, red wig, and he had a counterpart that was part of that skit. It was just a fantastic skit. So it would be worth the Sunday morning service to have him play Super Christian. So anyway, whisper that to him. So why did a guy that wrote a book called Joyous Leadership, why did he end up on a stage here today? Well, here's what I found out. I wrote the book primarily for the business community and for engineering interns and college students and people going in the business field. And because that's where I came from, I spent a lot of years mentoring and working with, there's one group, and let me make one thing clear. We're from Northeast Arkansas, but we moved from Springfield, Illinois. So sometimes I get confused, and I say, back in Springfield, I'm in the process of retiring. I'm still just consulting with the company and doing some work till the end of the year. But so we've physically relocated to our hometown in Northeast Arkansas. So anyway, I worked with a group called Sangamo CEOs. I also worked with an engineering group that a lot of engineering interns, and I would mentor these folks. And so I found myself telling the same story over and over. They would ask the question, well, you seem like a happy guy. You're successful. I want to be where you are. And I'm like, yes, but I've been doing this for 35 years. So you don't get where you're at to here. There's a journey. So the full title of my book is Joyous Leadership and Stories Along the Way. And so I talk about that with them, and so I decided to start writing it down in a book, and so that's how the book came about. And so it caught on a little more than I had planned, and then so I started getting asked to speak at other companies and talk about joyous leadership with their executive team. because there's a lot of sadness in the world. There's a lot of people that's missing things. The nice thing about us as a church is that we have that secret. We know where our joy is found. But sometimes even a little bit of that, you'll hear today. I'm going to tag on to your sermon last week at the movies with Michael J. Fox's movie Still. But you'll see, we have those aspirational values and we have those actual things that we do. And so I want to bring those closer together and talk about how we do that today a little bit. And so that's kind of it's kind of interesting because that kind of dovetailed in with my book and what I'm going to talk about today. We'll see if this slide thing works. It does. Okay. First of all, I want to define the difference between joy and happiness. I'd make a distinction on that because our modern world has made a distinction on that today. It's in Bible times, joy typically got translated joyous, and or blessed and stuff like that. So it was a little, in Bible times, we didn't have that much of a distinction, at least in our New Testament Bibles. But today, with the advent of so many things vying for our attention and to make us happy, we get caught up different. So I want to read that. This is a quote right out of my book. But happiness is a dopamine hit. Even though it's like those Instagram likes, Facebook likes, it's ice cream for me. I had ice cream last night, Italian ice down on the square. Fantastic. Joy is what sustains us between those dopamine hits. But in this society, we become a dopamine addict. That's what we pursue. And it's what we're marketed to. Oh, buy this car, or buy these pair of shoes, do this. Join this group, you'll be happy. Joy is a choice and purposefully made. Happiness is more external, while joy is internal and much deeper. Joy is a skill and art, and it must be studied and learned. So think about those dopamine things we have around. We need that, by the way. I'm not discounting dopamine. We all need that. A lot of times in clinical depression patients or whatever, that's what they're unable to manufacture is dopamine. So they have to have assistance. They're chemically, it's a chemical process, and so that has to be corrected. So dopamine is important. We get dopamine just by being here together. I got that this morning just by the singing and just being with you as a group. There's a little bit of a dopamine in our audience. So they're good. It's good. It's just that what happens whenever we're in those challenging times, those hard times. That's what I talk about in my book, Joyous Leadership. What goes on with that? And the reason I wanted to cover that, because whether you believe it or not, if you're a college student, you're a high school student, you're a mom here in the audience, you're a CEO, you're the head of the engineering department, you're head of the city waterworks department, or whatever you are, whatever your vocation or your lot is in life, you're a leader to someone. And I have people that will argue that, but I promise you, you are a leader to someone. Someone is looking at you. It may be a neighbor, it may be a friend, it may be a child, but someone is looking to you, and they're letting your actions guide their future. That's why it's so important to us as leaders, and I'm going to call us all leaders today because we are. I know there's people that have leadership titles. I've got a leadership title, but I don't think that's what made me a leader. It's what I do. It's what I express. But I want to make the case for joy as part of that. And I started to tell Russ, I'll just tell everybody how to be happy and I'll sit down. But I don't have that formula. But I can tell you how we can achieve joy. So that's the definition of the two as we go through the lesson today. I want to tell you a little bit about my story on joy. You know, things as we go through life, when I was 21, 22 maybe, life had not given me that many burdens. Burdens, I like to say, they're kind of like, they put them right here. I had one when I was a young teenager. My father passed away when I was a junior in high school, and I had a little bit of burden, put there. Made college a little harder to attend, made bills a little harder to pay. Just doing without a father at a critical time like that was a little bit of a burden. It's put there. But I still maintained joy. I still found my way. I still did all that. But when I got to an adult, young adult, getting my college degree, starting my career, and then, you know, and I know most of you have done this. If you're a young person, you're doing this today. You use that term, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get out of college. I'll be happy when I get out of high school. I'll be happy when I get my first job. I'll be happy when I get my first car. And when you get those things, you will be happy. But it's fleeting. It eludes you so many times. It lasts for a little while, and then it's the next, I'll be happy when. And I found this in my career, and this is what I talk about to executives all the time and students. And I say, don't fall into that trap when it's always, I'm going to be happy when. You're going to rob yourself of joy. Remember what we're doing right at this point. So in my personal career, one of the first things that happened, my wife and I, to date myself a little bit, I started my career in pretty much of an economic slump. And jobs were leaving the United States. They were going to Mexico, offshoring. And so you were just, I was taking anything I could do. And so I was working at a facility, and they said, hey, we would like you to go to Mexico and start a facility. And so I have a young family. I have my son, oldest son was like in the second grade, and my younger one was like 4 years old or whatever, 5 years old. And so I moved my young family there, and it was hard. It was just, and I was telling God, why are you doing this to me? Why are you having me come here where I don't have friends? Nobody speaks my native language. We were learning Spanish at a record pace because we had to eat and find the restroom. But still, it was hard. And the day typically started a lot of times on a Sunday evening. I'd pick up executives at the airport or maybe customers and then entertain them, take them to dinner. And it would go all the way till Friday evening. And then we had maybe Friday night and Saturday and Sunday to recharge. And so there's a lot of things that, as an executive, that made it hard for me, you know, that made me doubt that God was in control of my life, that He was listening to me when I would tell Him that I needed assistance and I wanted to do something different. But I was letting that rob a little bit of joy. But one thing I never did, even through all that, I found a way, through God's grace, to get through those times. And, you know, then I got personal life going on, right? You know, with that all that's going on, but you got personal life. Well, here's another thing. You know, I've lived a storied life. My staff likes to joke with me. Oh, Mark's got a story for that, and I probably do. But what I didn't tell you, my youngest child has Down syndrome. So when he was born, you know, we're wanting to be honest with you, we wanted to be kind of just an upper middle class maybe family, just have a couple of cars, maybe a brick home. We had low aspirations, not really be known by that many people, just be good citizens in the community. And then this happened, and then and I don't know, and he's redheaded, by the way. You bring him in this room, and the attention is going to go to him because he'll demand it. We left him at home with my brother watching him. He's 30, yeah, that age. I'm not good with math. And so, you know, things start, again, another burden, right? I had work burden. That's on here. Early in my life, my father died. I got a burden here. Now I've got a child with Down syndrome. Another little burden. But I'm still trying to practice joy. Still trying to practice happiness. And so, really, that didn't change until, can I raise your hand if you were you here last week, saw The Still at the movies? Good. So I'm not going to be talking totally foreign. It would be like Russ to really not have done that and just told me that. And then you go, well, we don't know what Still is. But my Still, or as he called it, my perspective is coming moment, happened about 8 years ago. So with all those, you got to remember, got those other little burdens I'm dealing with, but I'm doing life pretty good. Career's going okay. Family's for as well as can be when you have a handicapped child. And then about 8 years ago, I started having health issues. And you'll see me sit down probably here in a minute, and I'll explain a little bit of that. But I started having some health issues and just was in one specialty clinic after another, specialty doctor, and they'd treat me for this symptom, and they'd treat me for something else. And finally, one of the hospitals said, "Time out. We're just treating symptoms. There's something wrong." And so they asked me, told me I need to get to a specialty hospital like Mayo Clinic. And so we had made an appointment at Mayo Clinic, and we spent a couple of weeks up there, and one of the things I was unable to do was eat or digest food very well, and so I was losing about 1 pound a day. So I went up there at almost 200 pounds, and by the time I left, I'm down almost to 160. And so it was not something I could sustain. Something had to change. And so finally the doctor calls us in about 2 weeks into the testing and says, "I'm going to let you guys go home. We've got all the data we need. We've got a few tests we've got to send off, but here's the thing. Here's what I believe. You have one of 3 diseases. You have ALS, MS, or amyloidosis." And I got to tell you, I wasn't that familiar with any of those. I'd heard of people having MS, obviously. I'd heard of Lou Gehrig, that's Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. Amyloidosis, I didn't have a clue. So I remember asking the doctor, I said, because I'm a business guy, it's always, you got to plan your way out, right? I'm thinking, okay, well, just give me the facts. I felt like Joe Friday, give me the facts. And I said, which of these 3 diseases would be best? And he looked at me really, really funny, but like, what are you asking? But he said, so I said again, which of these diseases would be best for me to have? And he looked at me sternly and like a parent looks to a child, he said, none of them. At your age and as fast as your health is declining, all of these will prove fatal. I had that perspective moment. And I was mad. I mean, we didn't know what to do. We first went to the room and cried, thinking, and we looked at Dr. Google for all of them, thinking, well, we'll find the cure. And we finally went home, and we didn't really tell anyone for a while. I went to work the next day. My wife they had told us a little bit how to try to eat. So she'd make me a bowl of oatmeal. It would take me all day to eat it, but I'd eat it during, some for lunch, eat a little bit for breakfast, and then I'd go home and it was just a nightmare. And we were angry with God. Even I would lash out like, God, I'm trying to do all this for you, and I felt like, hey, I'm an important worker in your kingdom. What are you doing? You ever done that? You ever felt like I deserve different? It's not a great look on you to do that. And about that time, my wife, she had found even a country music singer that lives in your area. I think they all live in your area, but anyway, Rory Feek. You guys know who Rory Feek, Rory and Joy Feek. You remember that story? Well, Joy, his wife, Rory's the man, had stage 4 cancer, and he was writing a blog every day. And I came home from work one day in my usual chipper self, my new chipper self, and Stacy said, read this blog. And so I did, and I remember Rory saying, we got the news today, not the news we wanted to hear. We had hoped to hear that full remission, cancer is cleared, whatever, ring the bell. Instead, they got the news that the cancer had not responded to treatment, had actually spread. He said, I always thought this happened to somebody else. And then I remember, to somebody else, I am somebody else. And I thought, that was me. He went on to write a beautiful story about praising God. And I thought, that's what I want. I may not be going to be alive by Christmas, but I want to live a beautiful story. And I want to make sure that I can do that as well. My perspective moment at that point not ended, but it catapulted me to a joyous story. I wanted to go. So we started telling people, hey, guess what? I'm dying. I mean, it's really a weird thing to tell people. Like, oh, you are, And people would say, well, you seem okay. And I go, well, We all are. I just happen to know when my time is. And so you may wonder, okay, that was 2015. You go, hey, you're here today. That's a long 9 months. As luck would have it, and as the grace of God and the providence of God, a couple of months into my demise, after I'd been told I was going to die in 9 months, I came home from work one day. My cell phone rang. It's my doctor, and he said, hey, Mark, we have a drug trial. Would you like to be on it? I mean, what are they? You got a terminally ill patient. Who's going to say no, right? I had a 6 in 10 chance of getting the real drug, or 4 in 10 chance of getting the placebo. And so I thought, well, why not? We'll try it. I'd love to try. And so as you can see now, I'm still here. It's not a cure. I still take treatment. I'm getting one, matter of fact, next week, where it was chemo treatments every 21 days. I did that for about 7 years. And now it's just an injection that I take in my arm every 3 months, every 4 months. 3 months, I'm sorry. I'll get it right in a minute. I'll tell you I'm horrible with math. And but what I have is I'm left with, I battle with, I have no feeling from my shoulders down to my fingertips. That's why it was funny. I'm trying to get ready for this, and she said, you can mute yourself, or you can, I'm like, anything you can do from back there, I'm not touching this thing, because I can't feel it. And then I'm going to advance my slides. But I survived. I survived all that. And I learned not only did I do that, but it allowed me to have an avenue into people's hearts to express joy. Not all of us get to run out of this life with full faculties. We have those issues that we have. So, I started, once I got this and I started writing the book after I got on the drug and everything, I had 6 chapters already written, but I rewrote them because now I had a new perspective. I had that perspective moment. The 6 chapters were basically, the content was there, but they had a slant. They had a slant for joy. And so I started looking, I remember looking up, what does the Bible say about joy? What are some of the things? We all know certain ones. We know, right? We know we have maybe favorite scriptures, but we all know certain ones that we do. And it's one that I really like is Romans 15:13. It's on the wall here, but I love, that's maybe my favorite one. It says, may the God of hope fill you with joy, and that you trust in Him. The key there, may the God of hope fill you with joy as you trust in Him. That trust word is key. And may your heart, so that you may overflow with hope and the power of the Holy Spirit. The next one is in Galatians 5. But we all know this. I don't know, maybe you don't. When I grew up, we had a little song, a little jingle. Can you nod if you heard that? I won't sing it. Not after that great service we had. I won't sing out loud. But, there's a little song, a little jingle about it. But the fruit of the Spirit is joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and against such things there is no law. And then the next one, Romans 12:12, it says, be joyful in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. We're told what to do, but how do we get those aspirational values with our actual values? How do we get that? That's it. That's how we do it. And then lastly, I wrote down Psalms. You make it known to me the path of my life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. For at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. So as Christians, we share that. We have that joy. We can translate that into our life no matter what happens. Don't let your happiness and your joy be circumstantial on what's going on in your life. And I hope that's something that I have described there. So, we talk about perspective. I want to tag onto that last week when Michael J. Fox talked about a perspective moment. So how do we do? I just wrote down 4 things here I think that we can do as perspective. One is we got to prepare for our perspective moment now, right? And in my book, I use an analogy. I said, do this, when you get home, maybe tonight, or when you got a little bit of time. But when you look at Wikipedia about an author, or about an athlete, it'll tell all about them, or a famous person, country music singer. Write your Wikipedia page. what would that say? What would that say about you? If you don't like what it says, now's the time to change and get in that perspective moment. Now's the time to make some of those changes to get joy in your life. Well, Mark was just no grumpy old man. He got a disease and died a grumpy old man. I did not want that. If I wrote my Wikipedia page the day of my diagnosis, I was not going to be happy with the person that I died with. And I wrote that more explanation in my book. You can see that. Second thing is, if you know someone that's going through that perspective moment right now, join them, help them. It's hard to do, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, not many people are good at it, and most people are unwilling to do it. It's uncomfortable. You say, hey, Mark, how are you doing? Well, I'm dying in December. I didn't say that, by the way. I might tell them, but they would kind of like, but you look okay. You're doing okay today, right? And I would, but very few people had the empathy and the tenacity to sit with me and be my friend and help me say, hey, I'm here for you. What can I do? So that will help you prepare for your perspective moment if you can do that. Align your aspirational values and your practice values. Remember, Russ talked about this last week. We all say, well, they are. We all know what they should be. But then when we look at what maybe is going on, they're like two plates spinning. There's aspirational values and there's the practice values. Let's bring those together and look at that Wikipedia page and let's see how close we're getting. Lastly, we have the power to write our own narrative, and we need to choose to lead with joy. One of the things I do, I won't do that here. I won't do it. Russ is back, so I won't do it to him. But a lot of times I bring a prism on stage with me. You know what a prism is? It's that thing right there. When the light shines through, you get a beautiful rainbow. And a lot of times I do this in my office. I have a prism on my credenza, and I'll have a young engineer or maybe a young executive in the office, and maybe they're beat up, they're down, something's happened, they're wanting to talk something out with me. And so I tell them, I'll pick up the prism, and sometimes I don't even tell them what I'm doing. I get it over, I have a big window behind my office, and I'll shine that prism, and they'll say, boy, that's pretty, isn't it? They think I've lost my mind at first. Like, I've got a serious problem. You're playing with the glass. And they'll eventually, they'll say, yeah, that's really cool. What do you mean? I go, well, how about you do it? And I'll hand them across my desk. I'll give them that prism. Well, they don't have light where they're at, so they have to get up, and they come over by the window, and they start turning it. And I said, did you see what you just did there? And they said, yeah, I'm making the color come out. I said, no, you adjusted the prism. Sometimes we just lay that on the desk, and light comes through it, and it's just everything's great. But it takes an adjustment. Life takes an adjustment. It takes to acknowledge that perspective moment and how we're going to adapt to that. I tell them, you have an ink pen in your hand right now. You have today, and the rest for today is you always hear it's kind of cliche. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. That's you have the rest of your career going forward. You can write that story how you want that to end. I understand we can't change circumstances, but we can write how we respond to those circumstances. And so I challenge them with that prism. And a lot of CEOs, when I do this talk in front of CEOs, I give them that prism. And I tell them to take that with you and put it on your desk and look at that and remind yourself sometime. And I'm going to kind of close with this one, but here it never fails. I get the one smart aleck, right? And they said, what do you do when it's dark, boss? I said, you wait. You wait. The light will come. We all get the same white light. What we do with it is up to us. And that's what I'd like to close with today, is that we all have the chance for joy. We all have the opportunity for joy. We decided we're going to have joyous leadership or not, and we can do that. If you would, pray with me, please, and after that, I'll turn it over to Russ. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this beautiful congregation. We're so happy that you allowed us to get together today and praise your name. Dear Father, I ask that you bring joy, the opportunity for joy for all of us in this congregation, that we learn how to maximize our joy, maximize our happiness, and we can display that to one another. and we can make people of the world look at us and at awe and wonder and want to be a part of us because of the joy we found in you. Help us be transparent, help us be open, but help us always to look to you and remember that you are the joy in our lives. All this I pray in your Son's name. Amen.
Did you guys say thank you to Martin?